there. Do you want to come and sit over? I have to get up and speak later. I could sit. A lot of people there, huh?
All right, so we'll call to order the special meeting for March 20th at 6 o'clock. The clerk will call the roll, record who is present. I am the clerk today. Double duty. All right, so Anderson Burgos. Here. Bartley. Here. Bresnahan. Leahy. Glassborn Martinez.
Here.
Lisi. Here. McGee. Here. McGivern.
Here.
Roman. Sullivan.
Here.
Tallman.
Here.
Bacon.
Here.
Valentin.
So this is now.
All right, stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. God bless America.
And the city council, and the city of Holyoke. Everybody's falling down on their job.
So with that, we have a special meeting with regards, the agenda is a letter from the mayor regarding the budget balancing options, a communication from the Department of Revenue, and then there's some motion, orders, and resolutions, item 3, 4, 5, and 6, which are some of the options. With that, we'll go to item number 1, which is the communication from the mayor. I believe everyone did read this. I'll paraphrase it. I'm pleased to inform you that the Department of Revenue has certified the free cash for fiscal year 2018. The city has certified at $1,544,942 in the general fund, and $162,705 in the sewer enterprise fund for a total of $1,777,647 in certified free cash. And then we have that communication, item number 2. Once again, everyone did receive this. It's a communication from the Department of Revenue that says, during the course of the Bureau of Accounts review, it's certified that the city of Holyoke for fiscal year 2018 tax rate, we note a few significant fiscal and budgetary matters that need to be immediate attention. Before fiscal year 2018, tax rate recap can be approved and requiring that the city fund longstanding special revenue deficits, $388,282, see page 2. The second paragraph is, as of today, we note that the city has not started the fiscal year 2017 annual fiscal report. We must advise of the acts of Chapter 218 of the Acts of 2016, authorizing the Commissioner to delay current fiscal year state aid payments, as well as future fiscal year payments for any community not filing a report timely. Therefore, any community not filing the fiscal year 2017 report by March 23rd, a few days, fiscal year 2018 monthly state aid will be withheld beginning March 2018, and if not filed by August 24th of this year, fiscal year 2018 state aid will be forfeited. And fiscal year 2019 monthly state aid will be withheld beginning July 2018 and will continue to be withheld monthly until report is filed. So that's the communication from the mayor on those two matters. So with that,
Motion to receive.
motion is to
Second.
receive item 1 and 2. All those in favor? All those opposed? Now with regards to items 3, 4, 5, and 6, I know we have Bellamy here as well as Sandy from the treasurer. We have the mayor here as well. Would you guys like to suspend the rules to allow everyone to come in and speak, or motion is to allow those parties to come in and speak
Second.
and discuss the budgetary issue? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Your seat's open. Mayor, Bellamy, Sandy, if you want to come in, I mean,
They could
we have
sit
some
at the big
open
table.
seats, or
We could bring the mics to the big table.
we can do
looking
that as
out.
well. If you want to take Counselor Leahy's, Counselor Roman's. Also here is Tony DeLude from the Assessor's Office. with regards to the tax rate, and I do believe everyone has a communication on their desk for that. So with that, I'll turn it over to the mayor and Bellamy with regards to their orders and the budget.
Thank you, Councilor McGee. The communication I sent in last week in anticipation of tonight's meeting is pretty self-explanatory. As Councilor McGee stated, we have about $1.7 million in certified free cash, and all of the transfers we submitted for tonight's agenda would balance the budget. It also includes settling the deficits that are cited by the Department of Revenue. So that's included in the transfers tonight. It's not as if it's something in addition to. You'll see from the motions in the orders to balance the budget, number one is a transfer from the overlay account, and that was work we did directly with the assessor's office and got that approved. Also, the second order in the amount of $321,000 to reduce the 2017 multi-purpose loan principal goes directly to lower the deficit. That's because we actually don't need that money in this current fiscal year's budget, as the bond on that wasn't actually issued in the fiscal year we're currently in. And then the final two orders, transferring 160, the sewer fund free cash we were certified at to reduce the deficit, and then the remaining from free cash, general fund free cash as well. And so in a nutshell, all of these transfers and orders would balance the budget, cure the long-term deficit cited by the Department of Revenue, and that would leave approximately $200,000 in free cash left over. This plan obviously doesn't involve tapping into the stabilization fund, and I also would point out on the letter from the DLS, the DOR, regarding the annual financial report, Schedule A. We were on a conference call again today with Pat and Tanya from Melanson and Heath, and they've assured us that the Schedule A financial report will be filed by the deadline. This is something we've known since the fall, that we would come up close to the March 23rd deadline. So that's where we are now, and I just wanted to see if any folks have questions or concerns about the orders on the meeting tonight. And then, of course, it's important I know there's an order in the regular council agenda for the meeting that starts at 7 o'clock to set the tax rate. And so obviously it's crucial that we move forward on the orders tonight so we can get that done tonight and move forward.
Councilor Vacan?
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for coming down, Mayor Morse. And I was trying to follow the numbers in the letter, and I just came up with a question.
Yep.
So in the grand total of the liabilities and then the reductions that lead to the balancing of the budget, at the bottom of the letter, the additional $352,000 being removed from the tax overlay is referenced, but it doesn't seem to be included in the figures above. So is that going to be an additional $352,000 that will be available over the $200,000 if we make all these votes tonight?
No, so basically what happened is we had around the $1.1 million deficit that was circulating in our heads based on the information we had. And then based on the reconciliation that Clifton Larson Allen did, they identified about $500,000 in the health insurance line that was spent, but we didn't have the money to back it up. So that added to it. And then essentially the DOR also came back and said, well, this year in particular, we're going to require the city to settle these long-term deficits, and that totals to $388, $382. And so we look at a grand total of about $1.9 million, and then these are the transfers to completely eliminate that. It's not all completely a deficit. I don't want to frame it as if the deficit went up by that amount, but because they're requiring us to now settle those long-term special fund deficits, the 352 from overlay is a transfer to reduce that obligation to get to a balanced budget. I will also point out, Councilor Vacan, that the 388, 282 number in long-term deficits, as long as we haven't cured those deficits in past years, and every year we don't, those are automatically deducted from our free cash certification. So by curing this tonight, in the future, we won't have that 388 number subtracted from our free cash. We'll essentially have 388 more in the coming year by curing that tonight.
Right, and I appreciate that fact and that will correct that matter. I was just wondering why the tax overlay was broken out separately where the other reductions were incorporated
May I try
to the grand total.
May
So
I
if you-
answer that question for you?
Well, I think the mayor just did, but if you think you can add clarity, that would
Yes,
be welcome.
actually, that amount was factored into the tax recap last summer. It represents the resolution of a Verizon case
Right.
against a number of cities across the state.
Okay.
And so when that case was resolved, the assessor and I last spring agreed that we would release this reserve into the tax recap. In fact, it was put on the agenda for a December meeting of the city council, because you do have to vote to do that. But that never happened, so we had to bring it up again at the meeting tonight, because that is part of the overall plan.
Okay,
But
so-
that was netted out in that original roughly $1 million deficit that the mayor talked about.
So it's already
Does
been
that help?
accounted for?
Yes.
Yes, it does, because it was just funny that
Excellent.
it was out there separately.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councilor McGivern?
No, I mean, I do remember talking about the overlay when we went over the cap. But I also thought it was part of, or implied it was going to be part of the cherry sheet back when the original budget was filed.
I don't understand the question.
The recap sheet, I call it the cherry sheet, when we were.
The tax
voting-
recap,
Yes.
yes.
Was the overlay, estimated overlay part of that?
Yes, it was way back to last spring.
So that should be part of this year's budget,
Well, it's-
not resolving past,
No, it's part of the
issues.
2018 budget, yes.
Correct.
Yes, the 2018,
It always has been.
it always has been, yes.
Yes.
Sorry, I just want to make that very clear. It
Okay.
always has been
And
part
the
of the-
reason we have to take a separate vote on it, because it's coming from a whole different area. It's not an appropriation, but it's just
Right.
taking money back.
Right, and the state pointed that out to us, so
So-
I want to make sure that that's taken care of.
Okay. Did we know, back when we were discussing the recap sheet for 2018, about the prior year deficits? The mayor was talking
you
about
mean
this evening?
the 388? The 388,000 deficits, is that what you're talking about?
Well, the mayor was talking about some specific things that we have to resolve.
Yeah, the total of
Yes,
388.
we've, year in, year out, we get our free cash reduced by any fund balance that's negative, and we have about 5 of them that, in the amount of $200,000 each, that have come up time and time again. They've picked 2 of them that they really want us to resolve this year. Some of the others we have the chance of curing with cash, so they haven't dinged us for those yet. But yes, these deficits have been going on.
Hey, knowing and resolving are two different things, though.
Right.
So let me
Correct.
rephrase my question. Did we know we had to resolve these specific ones back in June?
No, that came up literally
Right.
2 days
So
ago.
we're actually, not only, if we vote this evening, taking back, which we should, the overlay account monies, but they're not in the recap. They're going to resolve deficits that were prior year. Geriatric authority.
Yes,
yeah.
from prior years, yes. But you got the letter from the DR, they say you have to do this, so we're doing it.
But it is a change in the recap.
Yes, it is a change. It's not something we've done in a long time that I know of, because a lot of these deficits go back years and years.
Yeah, and we didn't know this until late last week or mid last week when
Yeah.
we notified the council and the communication that this was a requirement from DOR to add to the recap.
Okay, thank you.
And it will, and as I was saying to Councilor Bacon, it will benefit us in the long term to be able to cure these deficits. And we were able to hold off on some of the other ones pending availability in the budget to cure them.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Councilor Bartley?
Hello. So let me just take it one at a time. Let's just run the 388,000. The 2 big ones in here, the economic development initiative, I assume, and then state of emergency deficit spending. What are those?
So
I
the,
can answer that for you. The state of emergency spending was spending that the city did in, I think it was 2010 for a big storm in October, might have been 2011. You went into deficit spending for quite a lot of money. Bill Fuqua applied to the federal government to get reimbursed for that money, and he collected everything but $200,000. So that $200,000 deficit has been sitting in this fund for 5 or 6 years. The second item, economic development, Wisteria-Hearst, I looked up, that was a grant of $250,000 given to Wisteria-Hearst in about 2010, 2011. For some reason, the money was spent, but they only collected half of the funds that they were due. They collected $125,000 instead of $250,000. I don't know why, this is way before my time, but that created a deficit in this fund. And again, this has been going on year in, year out, which is the reason that the DOR is finally clamping down and saying, you've got to cure these deficits because they're long-standing.
Okay, so following up on that, Bellamy, you're going to, or the mayor, is somebody going to inquire, let's take the second one first, with Wisteria-Hearst as to why they didn't collect the other half of a $250,000 grant and went ahead and spent the full $250,000? Because I think I heard you just say that.
The person...
Did I just hear you say that?
Yeah, that's exactly what
Okay.
happened. As near as I can tell by looking at the books, that's what happened.
Okay, because I don't want to just brush over that with one comment. I want it to be emphasized that a department of the city of Holyoke applied for, received a grant allegedly of $250,000, but that department, Wisteria-Hearst, collected half of that. But nevertheless, that department, Wisteria-Hearst, went ahead and paid the full $250,000. I think I heard you just say that. Okay, all right. So I'm emphasizing that for the public. So, and for other counselors. So I hope other counselors are hearing this. So we're going to follow up with Wisteria-Hearst. How?
Well, the person who did it is long gone, so I don't know that there's anyone there who has the institutional memory to answer that question.
Yeah, a lot of the grants are by reimbursement, so we could do our best to get to the bottom of it. It could be a situation where they were promised a grant based on reimbursement, and there may have been a spending freeze by the state or federal government, or the whole grant may have not come through. We just don't know all the details. We just know that it's been a deficit carried on year after year since the grant was received back in 2010 or so.
I appreciate that, Mayor.
Yeah.
So I guess going forward, well, first of all, let's do what we can to find out whether or not, we're not talking about 1874 here, so we're talking about 2010. So I'm hopeful that we can find somebody with the institutional memory going back a whole 8 years who can figure that out. Mm-hmm. Part two to that comment is we've got to get a policy and procedure in place so that never happens again, so that somebody a department gets a grant. Because it sounds like we could just do that. So that would be back to those world famous 2 words we talk about, internal controls. So we've gone over, we said that ad nauseum here. So we've got, and if you want to, or Bellamy wants to supply something to, as a draft so we can put into ordinance, that would be wonderful, Mayor. So thank you for that. The 2010 storm, okay, I'm assuming that's the October 29th, 2011 storm.
Yep.
I'm assuming that's
I
right.
assume that's it.
Okay. Okay, this is amazing. So we somehow, yes, I remember we had to pay for most of it out of stabilization, and my recollection was we got a certain percentage reimbursed from with the help of Congressman Neal and others, and so this has been hanging in a. Why do we not know about this until March 19th?
So it's actually every time the free cash is certified via the state, a communication is sent to the council in my office that lists every one of these deficits. So this actually isn't new information. It's been sent to my office and the councilors over the last 6 or 7 years. The money was spent actually before I took office, but again, it's one of those line items in deficit because we were never fully reimbursed by state or federal government for these expenditures, and then the city just had never appropriated that money to cure that deficit completely. I know back when Auditor Brian Smith was here, we had sent, Brian in particular had sent a couple of communications about this deficit and a couple other deficits, letting the council know that free cash wouldn't have been deducted X amount of dollars if we cure these deficits, and it's just something that we've continued to live with.
Okay, so I would, either to you, Mayor, or to Bellamy, my recommendation for that amount would be to go into stabilization. I mean, I would be warm to that as opposed to paying for it now. So I would ask you to reconsider, because that's what we have stabilization for, in my humble. So for storms and big emergencies, I would rather not pay for that part through this process tonight, Mayor. But you can.
Yeah, and I appreciate your point on that, and I think we've seen it that way in the past. We may very well see a use of stabilization if depending on future winters and whatnot. But I do think we have a plan tonight that solves longstanding deficits plus balancing the budget without having to tap into stabilization.
Well, that's your call, but that's your call on that. But I disagree with it. So. And I'd ask you to reconsider that.
Okay.
And again, so the public knows, and Mayor, you and I know this, so this is the mayor's call on something like that. That's the system, my friends in the public, to hear this, that the mayor has to make that call with his, the colleagues in government. So that's not something city councilors can do. Mayor, or Bellamy, I have to be really convinced, and you've got to be really persuasive as to why in the world would I vote to transfer funds out of the sewer fund retained earnings of $162,705. Why would I vote to do that to balance the general budget? Why would I leave the sewer fund retained earnings?
Because most of the deficit actually comes from the sewer fund, not the general fund. When we're talking about the deficit, it's a combination of general fund deficit and sewer fund deficit. And the sewer fund deficit in 2018 is somewhere between 800,000 and 1.2 million. I can't remember what the exact number is.
Okay.
But so the 200,000 from sewer fund retained earnings is curing some of the sewer fund deficit. But the rest of the free cash is curing the rest of the sewer fund deficit and what there is of general fund deficit.
Okay, so we have no data so far, and I appreciate you telling me that. We have no data so far relative to the ordinance that we passed finally, and now finally seems to be implemented to shut water off for delinquent sewer fund. Is that true? I don't think we have any data on how we're doing that.
Well, no, because I think it takes effect April 1st.
We don't have any data. Okay, so.
Yeah, so no data on that. And I would just point out, Councilor Bartley, that, even if 100% of users were paying their sewer fee, we would still have a sewer deficit, and a percentage of it is uncollectible. But I would just want to reiterate Bellamy's point in that, we have a little bit of sewer fund free cash, and almost the entire deficit we've been dealing with, the structural deficit, is from the sewer account. So it makes sense to use the small amount of sewer free cash to cure a percentage of the sewer fund free cash. But then again, we're using general fund taxpayer money to cure the sewer deficit as well.
No, thank you, Mayor. Appreciate that. That's helpful. The Mr. President, is it okay if I keep going?
Okay, there's other councilors that have questions, so just to be aware of that. And we have a limited time frame up until 7.
Okay, I just have one more line.
Yeah,
Okay,
go for
thank
it.
you, Mr. President. The multi-purpose loan principle, Bellamy or?
Yes,
Okay.
I can explain that.
Yeah, would you just, what was a bond? And I heard you say it's not needed this year. Will it be needed at some point?
Okay.
So what is this?
Last spring, when we budgeted, we anticipated that we would issue a multipurpose bond for this purpose in June of last year. So we put into the budget payments for that bond. In truth, the bond did not get issued until September, and the terms of that bond say that there is no principal payment in 2018. The first principal payment will be next year. So all of this money, $321,000 that we budgeted for that principal payment, is not needed in the 2018 budget. So we're proposing to reduce the 2018 budget by that amount, because that then reduces the deficit and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
No, I think we
Is that
said.
clear?
No, I think, well, that is clear, yes, but I think we already said that. I guess what's the bond, Bellamy? Just remind me.
There were several tranches. I honestly don't remember, but the treasurer is here. She probably remembers because she did it. So.
All right, so in a second, we can, I don't want to, so we'll have the treasurer come up and speak. My other part, the 3 to 21,000 we budgeted for this year, I take it we would would we have to budget a similar amount for next year?
Yes, absolutely. In 2019, yes. Yes, because this, it'll be, the bond will go on for 10 or 15 years. I don't know what the term is, but, yes.
All right, then at some point, Mr. President, can we just hear from the treasurer, not out, after the council?
If Sandy can come up to the mic so we don't lose the question and others.
So, is this on? Yes. So basically what happened was, we do not bond until the project is complete. This council had voted on trucks for DPW, pool yacht pool, some school projects, and the water department. And those projects were not completed until, well, actually, some of them are still not completed, they're still in the air. But the trucks will be completed in 2018. So when Bellamy was here, he was kind enough to include that, like he said before, in principal and interest. But because we did not bond for those, we banded for small expenses as of June 30th, 2017. And that's why there was a savings on the principal.
Thank you, Sandy. Thank you, Mr. President.
Councilor McGivern, then Councilor Lisi.
Sandy, just while you're standing there, so the payments Bellamy talked about, is that what would come out of the short-term debt line item?
I'm sorry.
Would the payments, the upfront payments, come out of the short-term line item? Short-term loans or short-term bonds?
The bands, yes. Okay. And we only pay interest on the bands. We don't pay principal.
But what you use to pay is in the budget that we see.
Yes, it is in the budget.
Short-term.
Yes,
Okay.
When he was here as auditor, he was under the impression that these bonds would be put into place as of June 30th, and he calculated the principal and also the interest, but we didn't use the principal because we did bands, short-term.
Okay. And this is fairly routine?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Bartley makes a good point. I just wanted to make a quick statement, then I do have two questions. David's point is on the grant is, this is the fundamental part of what we have to get back to as a city. But the only thing, I don't disagree with David, but the only thing I want to point out is, Bellamy, is we vote to accept the grant because it's an appropriation. The language we get from the auditor, treasurer, is very simple. We vote to accept and set up a special account to be used through the auditors, through the treasurer's office. The mayor has to sign off on it, and the money to be expended has to come from that account. So how any department can overspend a grant is beyond me, because someone could not have been watching, and I wouldn't blame a department head. I'm not going to blame anyone this evening. It's over the dam at the moment, but this is the fundamental part that we have to get back to. Every department head in this city, anyone who has access to their budget, needs to know the process of how to spend money and how to account for money. Because these little things are what added up to, I think, the big things of the accounting issues that we had where we lost issue with it. The sewer fund, Bellamy, and I don't think you can do it this evening, but it's not just this year's deficit, and Mayor, I think you alluded to this. We have used property tax dollars for the last 6 years to offset the sewer fund deficits. That is a crime. There are people in this city that have septic tanks that part of their property tax dollars is going to the sewer fund. I wholeheartedly think that not only this amount should be coming back to the city, but a much larger amount in the future should come back to the city, because property tax dollars should not be used for a user fund. And that's just something I've said for years, and I wholeheartedly support what the amount has been put in front of us from the mayor. Snow deficit, I do have a very important question, because I agree with everything you've said, with one exception. I thought we did vote for the difference from the stabilization fund. I believe at one point in time, we were advised, we were waiting to see if FEMA would give us more money, But at some point in time, we knew there was a deficit, and I thought we did transfer money from stabilization. You know, I'm not going to tie up a vote this evening, but that is something that I think should be looked into.
Can I address that, Joe?
Please.
Sorry.
Thank you, Sandy.
We did. We did take some money out of the stabilization to cover 435. You have to, and I'm just speaking from past, when they give you a grant, it's on paper. They say, we give you X amount of dollars. We have to spend the X amount of dollars and hope. It's kind of like the MSBA. They say, we're going to give you a project. It's going to cost so much money. And then we put in the full amount and hope that the state will give us back the 80%. And then we expense the 20. And these old grants that you voted on and you agreed with, like say the Wisteria Hearst, and unfortunately the snowstorm, yes, we had to spend the money. Unfortunately, like Bellamy said and the mayor, sometimes the federal government says, no, we're not going to give you whatever was allocated. And I think that's what happened with the Wisteria Hearst. I don't think it was poor management. I just feel that they didn't get, the state or the federal government didn't give us the money, unfortunately.
How they spend it? How they spend the money in half, Sandy?
But the thing is, we
We
sign
voted
off
to-
on a full
Before it
grant.
gets off
We
track.
voted to allow, deficit funding is allowing the DPW in this situation to spend the money.
Yeah, hold on.
No, I thought we were talking about DPW.
But that's what I'm saying. In all the cases that we've had in the past, you guys, the city council votes on whatever the amount is. The city spends it, and then they, hopefully, the federal and the state will come in and reimburse us for what we've spent.
On a grant.
Yes.
And I see what David's
Yes,
saying.
and
but-
then I believe the same
But on deficit
thing.
spending, it's a whole different ballgame. You know,
Right.
we're carrying it into another year. We're allowing it to be spent as the emergency goes on. We actually have very little choice. It just
Correct.
happens. And then because we expected FEMA to reimburse us, you know, we allowed for the deficit spending, which comes with an issue of it does have to be repaid the next year. And my thoughts, though, is we did vote stabilization money. But if you're telling me we voted stabilization money up front and it wasn't enough and this is the balance, that I can accept.
We did,
But-
Joe.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
That makes more sense to me. I mean, but if someone tells me we didn't vote on stabilization, I'd be a little
We
bit
could,
scared.
we can find the paper trail and provide that
Mayor,
afterwards.
one
too.
last thing is,
Yep.
I appreciate your comment on every year, we used to take a vote on free cash as a new appropriation, and we do get that number through your office, through the auditor's office every year. And I think we have it this evening on the regular agenda, but I have never seen an attachment that tells us about these deficit cures that we are talking about this evening under any circumstances. I'm aware of some of the deficit cures from talk and discussion, but not at the time when we get the free cash number. So I think maybe your
Okay.
office gets it, but it is not.
Okay, that's good to know,
forward
because we were on the phone with Pat Squilante from Melanson Heat this afternoon, and I asked if this was sent to the council with the deficits, and she said yes, but she could also
That
be
was
mistaken.
sent to me today.
Okay. She had also.
I asked for it.
Yeah, she said she sent it to you, but she also said that she had provided it to the council in the past when we were on the phone earlier. But maybe maybe not as exhaustive
maybe
as
she's
the
talking
list.
about in their annual audit.
Yeah.
It may be part of that, which is fine, but it's not at the time that we vote on the free cash, is
Okay.
the only thing I'm saying.
Yep.
Minor point, not a big deal, but just, it is important, I think, to understand, but again, I can't say it enough. We need to get back to the fundamentals, and that includes us, the city council, too. We all have to work on this together.
Counselor Lisi?
I'm all set. I just was going to make some comments about the deficit spending, but I'm good.
Anyone else? Counselor Bacon?
So I think I heard you refer to some other deficit accounts that we haven't cured in the budget. Was I correct in hearing there are some remaining?
Yes, there are some that the DOR isn't requiring us to cure, because I don't know them off the top of my head. There is a couple, but we still expect revenue to come in. So there's some unbalanced
So they're
deficits,
not-
but the only reason they're not requiring us to settle the others is because we anticipate revenue to settle those, absent an appropriation tonight.
Okay.
whether it's grants or whatnot.
Okay, thank you.
Did the DOR fix, or did we fix the variance on that 500,000 that was mentioned in the meeting?
Yes, that's included in this, in the increase in
deficit,
the deficit, yes.
How is it fixed?
Back to what one of us said, I don't remember which one, but the original deficit last June was about $1 million. We had $500,000 roughly to it for that deficit, and then we had $388,000 to it for the requirement of the DOR, and that totals roughly 1.8 million or so, which is what we've laid out here.
So in essence, they reduced our free cash by 500,000.
Correct.
So we're supposed to get a little over 2.
Maybe,
Went down.
yeah, I'm not
No,
sure.
it's not
of.
maybe, it is yes.
Yes.
Okay, I
So it
don't,
was over 2 million, they reduced us to 1.5 on that variance.
okay.
Yes, it's
Important to
accurate.
know. I mean, is that not important? $500,000 ding to free cash?
Yes, and we established that at the finance meeting last Monday.
So now we're on the same page. Any other questions?
Yep.
Counselor Sullivan?
So on the sewer fund retained earnings, will that be applied against the overall sewer deficit dollar for dollar? Will we see a decrease of that amount in what's owed in the sewer deficit?
No, I mean, the deficit recreates itself every year. I mean, we're putting together the budget for FY19, and again, we'll be anticipating a $1.2 million deficit in the sewer fund, absent any modification of the rate.
So we're getting retained earnings in the sewer fund, but not applying them against the deficit in the sewer fund?
We are tonight. So a majority of the overall deficit we find ourselves in, the $1.1 million deficit, around $900 million of that is all sewer fund deficit. So by transferring that in, we're using the sewer fund free cash to cover, I would say, about 20% of the actual sewer fund deficit. So yes, it's going directly dollar for dollar to decrease the sewer fund deficit. But we still have, again, even after we do that, we still have $800,000 left of sewer fund deficit that we now need to cure with general fund tax dollars. So yes, we're using what's left in the sewer fund to reduce the sewer fund deficit, but we still have leftover.
Okay. And is that a number that there's more deficit numbers coming into it this year also?
What do you mean?
Is the deficit, despite applying $162,000 into it, is the number still getting larger?
It has remained relatively constant over the last 5 or 6 fiscal years. The management costs have stayed relatively flat, but the payments to the bonds for CSO work and water work have increased over time, and we just haven't modified the sewer rate in 10 years, so it's a little bit out of whack.
Before I go on, we have to make a correction to the order. It says, item 3 is from Councilor McGivern, order that they're hereby appropriated by transfer $352,000 as follows. From overlay to, and the 2 part is missing.
That's because it's a reduction, so it doesn't get
you don't-
transferred anywhere. That is the form,
You
that
just
is
wanna
the
do it like
correct
the-
form.
Okay.
We've used that before for when we've reduced budgets.
Okay,
or
just wanna
something
make
That's why
sure.
we need a separate vote, because it's already money that was appropriated.
You just
in
want
prior-
to,
yeah.
all right, and you're just cutting it, all right.
Yeah, we're just
Because
cutting
that's
it,
going to apply
exactly.
to 4 as well.
Correct.
In essence, 321, as follows.
Mr.
That's a
President?
weird way. Yeah. Go ahead, Councilor Bartley.
Yeah, and thank you, Mr. President, for your patience. So I guess I want to compliment the assessors for their diligence in being pretty conservative as to the transfer from its overlay account, because they're being fiscally responsible and fiscally prudent, and I think this is a a fair number that they've offered to return to the general fund. So I just want to put that on record. Thank you.
Anyone else? I did talk to Tony when he did come in. He's out in the hall. As was referenced, but for people at home, the 352 represents the amount from the Verizon case. So with that settlement, the money went into here, of which Tony said to us in a meeting, whatever comes back, he will give. It was supposed to be 392, Tony. It's only 352. To the mic.
352 we did transfer to the general fund to balance the budget. Also, there was another 40 that we're going to use, and that's already in the overlay from 500 to 460. So everything's all fine, and that was just from the Verizon case. That was the tax rate Supreme Court decision. So that money was promised back, and we gave it back. So
And next year, we're looking at
maybe about after settles things, it should be another 75 because we had promised like 425. So
Okay.
all right.
So just so everyone's aware of the numbers, next year it's not going to be the same amount. It's going to go to the I'm just making sure we're all on the same page here. All right, with that, if there's no further questions, item number 3, is there a motion?
Make a motion to take off the table to pass the first reading.
Second.
Motion is to take off table, pass the first reading. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion is to
Pass the second reading.
pass the second
Second.
reading. It was seconded. With that, the clerk will call the roll. That's me again. Do it correctly so I don't get in trouble. We'll go in alphabetical order because I didn't pull any names from the can. If I call your name, yes is you're voting to approve the transfer from overlay 352. If you vote no, you're voting against that.
Mr. President?
Yep.
Just a point of order. I don't mind going first. It's me. Juan Anderson Burgos, well, I mean, he does start with A, and we like that. I mean, he's a brand-new counselor, Mr. President. It's not, I mean, you can start, why don't you start with me?
If that's what if
mean,
we do
I
that, you'll be it for the rest of the night.
That's okay. I don't
All
mind
right, so we
that.
pulled Counselor Bartley's name.
I mean, because the votes it's confusing. It's
Make a motion to suspend the rules to allow Councilor Bartley's
Bart-
request.
To go first
Yeah, I'll go
for
first
all
on that.
votes for the rest of the night. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Mr.
So-
President?
Yes, Counselor Thomas.
Just a quick question. We're different makeup now with 13 people, and for this money, this to be the amount of votes needed for this transfer.
9.
You need 9,
9 votes,
That's
okay.
2/3 tonight.
2/3.
Okay, I just saying there's 2 people missing. Oh, okay, no problem. Just wanted to make sure everybody knows that out in the public
Yep.
and my colleagues, so.
Well, that's a good point. So once again, Counselor Leahy cannot attend. He's in a conference in Boston. Counselor Bresnahan is here. Counselor Roman is not here as of yet. So with that, we'll go on the item number 3. Bartley,
Yes.
Bresnahan,
Yes.
no. LeBron Martinez,
Yes.
Lisi,
Yes.
McGee, yes. McGivern,
Yes.
Roman, no. Sullivan,
Yes.
Tallman,
Yes.
Vacan,
Yes.
Valentin.
Yes.
What your vote?
Well, yeah, one more.
Anderson Burgos.
See, Bartley, you messed me up.
Well, I'm trying to help so much.
My last name is not Z.
Z.
Yes.
Anderson Burgos.
C.
Yes, that's C. With your vote, you approved the transfer. Item number 4, is there a motion?
Make a motion to receive, take off the table to pass the first reading.
Second.
Motion is to receive, pass the first reading. Under debate, conversation on this one? No? All in favor?
Aye.
All is opposed?
Motion to pass the second reading?
Motion is passed the second
Second.
reading. Clerk will call the roll. If you're voting yes, you're voting for the transfer. If you vote no, you're voting against it. We'll go to Counselor Bartley.
Yes.
Counselor Bresnahan.
Yes.
Counselor Leahy, no. Counselor LeBron Martinez.
Yes.
Counselor Leahy. Lacey. Oh, you guys
Yes.
are killing me today. McGee. Yes. McGivern.
Yes.
Sullivan.
Yes.
Tallman.
Yes.
Bacon.
Yes.
Valentin.
Yes.
What, you're a vote? You're
Yes.
see?
Yes.
I'm gonna get used to that by the end of the night.
Yes.
Sorry, Z. Anderson Burgos. Now, what's your vote? You've approved the vote. Thank you for being patient.
I got you.
Item number 5. Is there a motion on that?
Make motion to
item?
receive, take off the table to pass the first reading.
Second.
Motion is to receive, pass the first reading. Under discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Motion to pass the second reading.
Motion is passed the second reading and was seconded with, clerk will call the roll. If you're voting for transferring from the sewer fund 162,705 to reduce the fiscal 2018 tax levy. Bartley.
No.
Bresnahan.
Yes.
Vasspor Martinez.
Yes.
Lisi.
Yes.
McGee. No. McGivern.
Yes.
Sullivan.
No.
Tallman.
Yes.
Bacon.
No.
Valentin.
Yes.
Z. Anderson Burgos.
Yes.
7, 1, 2, 3, 4. 7-4 is the vote.
Make a motion to reconsider our action.
Second.
Second.
Motion is to reconsider. It was seconded. For the reconsideration, under discussion, Councilor McGivern.
The purpose of reconsideration is state finance law says an appropriation passes by a simple majority. Our charter says that we have to have on the first reading a 2/3 majority. The simple majority of the city council now is 7. I would ask that we respect the simple majority and reconsider our action for the purpose of laying this on the table.
Second.
The vote is a 2/3 vote. It's a 9 vote. You did not receive the 9 votes, so what are you asking for? To table it, to?
I'm asking to reconsider our action and then to
That
table
would-
it.
That would require a 2/3 vote.
No, table is just a simple majority of anyone here.
No, the full body.
No,
I totally
the
disagree.
reconsideration
For
is a
the
simple.
full body, that represents Councilor Nelson not being here, as well as Council 8, not of the members present.
Reconsideration is a simple majority of the people here.
Oh, no. So
Point
get the roll.
point of order,
So?
I'd ask that that be a ruling made that reconsideration is a simple majority of the body present.
I disagree, but since you're making it to table, I have no problem with that. So it would be a motion to reconsider. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Nope.
No. Show of hands as to reconsider. If you're in favor, raise your hand. 6, fails. Don't get the 7. Councilor LeBar Martinez.
We can ask questions? Can I ask? So by tabling it, what does that mean when we have to have a decision made for the 23rd?
We just took a vote that now we cannot set the tax rate this evening. We have to do it by April 1st for the bills to go out. So we're, before April 1st, so the bills can go out.
Can I do, okay.
Councilor Bacon.
By my math, we will still balance the budget if we pass the next order.
The next order for free cash would be 1.356558.
Correct. We will still balance the budget.
I believe we'd have to amend it to $1,519,263.
We cannot amend it.
We can't amend it, but they could come back with a late file of the 1.5, the full amount.
Well, the figures that we had before us left a $200,000 cash.
Right, but to clarify, the free cash would be certified at 1.554, I think the number was. They're only saying free cash of 1.356.